I'm now going to hand over to Norbert, who's going to talk to us, like I said, about some of the real-world aspects of this challenge. Norbert.
Thank you, Granby. I have been asked to give some real-world view on the challenges I see in my projects, and I will try to start with the first one, which is, as we heard in the introduction, multi-platform delivery is a fact. So everyone is using that, and the market situation forces the content owners to monetize their assets on different platforms. The reason is that on one hand, the customer requires to have the content whenever he wants to see and use it, and the content owners need to sustain their existing business models and generate new revenue streams. I can see this in almost all of my projects, that at the end, if you talk about requirements and delivery, at the end there is always at least one new media outlet required, and that, and even if it's only just to promote content on their own website. So we have to look very closely what the impacts on the work process are. The first thing, which is very difficult, is that the lead time for new services is decreasing constantly. So the content owners have to launch new services in a much shorter lead time. So I give you an example. I was working for Disney in a project last year, and we had to launch an HD channel within 5 weeks after signing the contract. So this means it was a dual language channel in German and in English, with 5.1 in German and in English. So the biggest issue was to get all the material to prepare the transmission of the movies mainly. So as you can imagine, this was only possible with a lot of manual workflows and a lot of operational complexity at the end. So there were a lot of Excel spreadsheets for tracking content processes and material. So what you have to do at the end, you have to reorganize all the work processes to get an efficient workflow. This refers to metadata exchange, refers to technical workflows, it refers to material exchange, to operational process tracking, and so on and so on. So the reality is that very often there's not enough time to do that properly, so because the next project is already coming up. So this process can take months and can, I would say even can take years to bring all these manual workflows back into an integrated solution. But it's something which needs to be considered when you talk about multi-platform delivery. A very important point, in my opinion, is to managing the paradigm shift and the skills requirements related with IT-based broadcasting. So, as all of you know, working with IT-based systems follows a different approach than we did with classical broadcast technology. So it requires a different skill set for the operators and also mindset, and for administrators. So I think all parties need to understand the whole process, not only a limited part of it as it probably was in the past. Everyone needs to understand what is happening at the end of the process chain, when you, especially if you change something in the beginning. And in my opinion, very important is to understand that working with IT-based solutions is related to a constant learning process. If we talk about multi-platform delivery, and we heard from Granby that metadata is key in that aspect, a big challenge very often is to extract the metadata out of the systems. We heard that most of the time the metadata is somewhere in the system, somewhere in any database, but to extracting that in the right formatting and in compliance with the contract obligations is sometimes very challenging. We see this later on in the presentation, how this can be addressed. A very important challenge, and very often seems to be forgotten, is that testing requires a considerable effort. When you plan a delivery process to any platform, you also have to do some end-to-end tests. This refers to technical file transfer, for example, and also for metadata. And what I see in my projects is that the metadata exchange is often much more critical than the file exchange. Sometimes you have a forgotten blank line in your document and it causes a lot of headache.